Hey everybody, coming to you today to talk to you about our next installment on intervals. So last time we talked about intervals, we talked about how to construct a basic guideline, and we can use some of our best races or our best paces for certain time domains, like something under 10 minutes, something around 20 to 30 minutes, something around 40, 50 to 60 minutes, and then something even longer, although that's not used quite as much. Typically, intervals are all going to be done from 60 minutes and down for the most part, and there's kind of three different zones. That was the last video, and what we're going to talk about today is we're going to go a little bit deeper on one certain pace, and then we're going to look at some different options in creating an interval and how those different options create different effects within our physiology. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So for this example, we're going to use the same mile time as last time. We're going to use the 7:30 mile time, and then we're going to determine the length of the actual work portion of the interval. Okay, so we're going to find out kind of this moderate zone, this 25%. This more aggressive zone of 35% and the more conservative zone of 15%. And these aren't exactly 15 and 25 and 35%, but they're pretty close. And what this turns out to be is 15% of a 7:30 mile or 15% of 7 minutes and 30 seconds is about a minute. Okay, 25% of 7:30 is just shy of 2 minutes. And 35% of 7:30 is just shy, about 20 seconds shy of 3 minutes. Okay. When I do intervals, I'm not going to give you 35% of a 7:30 miles. Actually, I think 2 minutes and like 39 seconds. Okay. I'm not going to give you a 2 minute and 39 second interval. That's just silly. That's being a silly goose. Okay. I'm just going to round it up or down to what makes sense. Okay. It's more practical. It's more pragmatic to just put that in your phone or your watch or whatever and do a 1 or 2 or 3 minute interval. Okay, so we don't have to be so precise and nerd out on exactly 25 or 35% or 15% or whatever. Okay, so now that we have our relative percentage of this 7:30, now we're going to determine how much total work we're going to do at this 7:30 pace. Okay, if I'm doing 7:30 at a minute, okay, this is this row right here. If I'm doing 25% or 2 minutes of that 7:30 mile, this will be this row, and the same thing with this row. Okay, so this will be 25% of this 7:30 mile. So what exactly does that look like for a 15%? And it's going to be about, you can see it doesn't quite line up, but it's going to be 2 sets of 1 minute. And for all of these, we're just going to do the same work to rest. We're going to do a 1 to 2 work to rest. Okay, so 25% of the total volume of 7:30 would be 2 minutes. So we split that up into 2 sets of 1 minute. Okay, and that ends up being about a quarter of 7:30. Of the total time to exhaustion. Okay, now we bump up to 50%. And these are pretty simple as I go all the way up to 125. For this, you can see I'm just doubling the sets to get that total amount of work. And I shouldn't say double the sets. I double it initially, and I'm just adding 2 every time. Okay, so this is a good example. So if I get 8 minutes of work, that's basically the time of the pace I'm working at. Okay, so if my pace mile is 7:30, I'm getting a total of 8 minutes at that pace with these 2 minutes of rest. And then 125% is 10 by 1, 2 minutes. Okay, so this is the most conservative of the actual work interval, meaning that when I do a minute, I'm not reaching the level of exhaustion or fatigue if I were to stretch it out and do 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so we can fill out this column here, so 25%, would just be a 1/2 with 4 minutes rest. And here I just add one set each time. It's pretty simple going forward. Okay, and if you noticed last time, we talked about this being kind of the prescription that I gave for the intervals last time. And this 75% is kind of like just a kind of rule of thumb of kind of the moderate, kind of aggressive, but kind of middle of the road. It's just a good heuristic to follow, a good rule to follow is 75% of the total volume of the time to exhaustion. In this case, it's 7:30. So I'm doing about 6 minutes of total work at that pace for this example. Okay, so we can go to the 35%, which is 3 minutes. And in this case, it's not possible since the interval is, the work interval is longer than 25%, so we'll just cross that out. But then, and it's not going to be, completely perfect, and we're going to overshoot some here. But then we're just going to pick up and do 1/3 with 6 minutes, 2/3 with 6 minutes, 3/3 with 6 minutes rest. We're just going to add a set every time. Like I said, we're going to overshoot a little bit. Obviously, we need 8 minutes of total work here. We got 9. We got the 6 minutes here. We're a little under here, and we overshot by a good bit here. But this isn't super by the book strict, like you have to have 125% or 100% or 75% or whatever. This is just a guideline to show you this relationship. As you go from this corner right here, and then I go down to this corner, it gets way more aggressive. Not only the total work from the work interval and the rest interval, or the recovery interval combined, so this is going to be 6 minutes right here. These two is 6 minutes total, which is 20, ends up being 75% of the time to exhaustion. But this isn't super important, but just an example for you to understand how long the entire workout takes to over here. If I've got 12 minutes and then 24, so this ends up being 36 minutes right here. So I can't just jump into this workout. I have to work my way through some of these first before I get there. And by the time I get there, I would be willing to bet that this 7:30 pace is no longer relevant. You're probably way faster than that by now. If you're going through some of these, and one kind of strategy, if you're just practicing the 7:30 for the first time and you just kind of snake along, and you come back here and you snake along, and you come back here and you snake along. So I'm going through all of these, building up, just adding sets. Once I'm done with this, I can come back and make the work interval more aggressive by doubling the time. And then I can work through these intervals as I go. And then I can finally try to make my way to the very end here. The 125% of the total time to exhaustion, the 7:30, with 12 minutes at that pace. Like I said, by the time you get there, you're probably way faster. Need to do that, but this is just an example of something that is more conservative. Up here, it's going to be a little easier to recover from. This would even be kind of a maintenance. If I'm doing a lot of volume and I'm doing a lot of low intensity running or conditioning, okay, this would be a good way for me to maintain my speed, okay, is spending some time with this type of prescription up here. Okay, if I'm doing something where I'm doing more VO2 max work, okay, I would want to spend more time over here and accumulate more time at that pace. Okay, so that is basically the rundown on kind of the different ways I can accumulate volume, I can mess with the work interval, and then I can mess with the total amount of sets that I'm going to do. The last thing I'll touch on is just get you to kind of conceptualize that as this number, the work interval, this 1 minute, goes to here, okay, and you double the amount of time spent there, that will increase the amount of fatigue I get per rep, okay? Even if I'm equating for volume, like these two right here, these two workouts are not the same. Theoretically, this one would be harder because now I'm doing this work interval, I'm getting this 2 sets of 1, and I'm doing all at once. Okay, so for equating volume, like this workout and this workout is harder. For this workout and this workout is harder. As you extend out the work interval, it gets harder. You're accumulating more fatigue. You're producing more lactate. You're getting more acidic overall, and it's harder to clear and buffer lactate and shuttle it out and clear it as you make that work interval longer. Okay, so this means that theoretically my heart rate is higher, my internal load is higher, just by increasing the amount of work in the work to rest. Okay, the total or the absolute time going from 1 minute to 2 minute means that the internal load is going to be more because I'm extending that work portion out, and lactate, we know, increases exponentially past a point, and we're going to be past it because this is our mile pace. Okay, we're going to be exponentially increasing fatigue, and so that's why inherently anytime I go from 1 to 2 minutes, or I just increase that work time, the interval that has the longer work time is going to be harder when you equate just overall volume. Okay, so this is just a few examples of how you can manipulate one pace and combine sets and reps in unique ways to get you unique adaptations. This will keep you fresher, right? And you'll get a higher output. You'll probably be able to maintain that mile pace or that 7:30 pace for longer. You can probably hold that pace with no problem through most of these. If you compare these paces or this interval to these are going to be tougher to hold because at the end of that 2 minutes, you're going to be struggling and that output could potentially drop. Your heart rate is going to be high, your internal load is going to be high, but your output, your actual velocity, your running speed is in more danger of slowing down. The same thing with this 3 minutes. Okay, now I'm really pushing the pace. Once I get to the second, the third, fourth iteration of this 3 minutes, that's when I really start to struggle to hold that output and hold that speed. Okay, huge internal load, heart rate, lactate, got to clear it. Okay, and then the threat of the output dropping. But up here, you'll get less lactate, less high heart rate, probably a lower average heart rate through these, lower lactate levels, but you'll be able to maintain that output and that speed for most, if not all, of the duration of the intervals. Okay, so that is going to be it for today's video. If you like it, please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends, all the stuff that I don't really know much about. And if you have anything that you want us to go over, any method, any prescription based for conditioning or lifting or anything like that, just let me know. Drop in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.